Hey, I'm Charlie Sauer, president of the Market Institute and editor of U.S. Policy. President Biden has a problem in his hands in the form of inflation. And for some reason, instead of addressing the problems that drive inflation, like growing labor costs or added regulations, he keeps blaming others. His administration has blamed big tech, big meat, and now they're trying to blame big rail. Yet the facts don't add up. Unlike other industries in the crosshairs, freight rail has a long economic track record, and the results show market intervention produces bad outcomes. As an infrastructure type saddled with immense hard costs, a web of regulations, and powerful labor unions, railroading is expensive, making it even more interesting to study because few are willing to take these large risks. And now, the industry is under attack by the Biden administration and his U.S. Surface Transportation Board, or STB, because they don't think there's enough competition. The argument in Washington appears to be that if there is a lack of competition, then prices will rise. As prices rise, inflation rises. Therefore, the big evil freight railroads must be reined in and competition will be forced upon them. Well, the problem for President Biden and his team is that micromanaging the freight rail industry has already been tried. We have the data, and as forecast by likely every economist that looks at it, regulations increase prices instead of lowering them. This is really economics 101. If you increase the cost of goods that go into a product, then you've increased the cost of the product. So additional regulations increase prices instead of lowering them. So what is this regulatory proposal? Well, the administration and the STB are pushing to force switching of cargo between railroads to create the illusion that entities now served by one railroad are now served by two. Now, some might think that that sounds positive. It isn't. It may drive down rates for a small number of powerful shippers for a small time, but railroads already switch traffic between each other on behalf of customers, doing so where it makes sense logistically and economically. This limits disruptions and maximizes efficiency, a net positive for an economy dependent on the movement of goods and a supply chain that Americans understand now better than ever. Enforcing railroads to carry traffic on behalf of a competitor, well, that's analogous to forcing Walgreens to letting CVS sell products in its stores. It may drive down rates for some petitioning shippers, but it is hardly competition. Of course, the arguments over freight rail is one of the oldest regulatory arguments in our government, but the lessons learned aren't what proponents would have you think. Because when many of the regulations around pricing were backed off in the 1980s, competition was revived, driving prices down. In fact, they were driven down a lot, as much as 44%. An analysis from the American Action Forum notes that productivity also increased and volume went up. So it is worth repeating, when prices were deregulated for freight rail, shipping costs went down, productivity went up, and volume went up. These are things that help keep inflation low, at least in this part of the economy. The current proposal of the Biden administration, on the other hand, called forced access, would take the market in the wrong direction. Forced switching of traffic would not be based on the market, but on what the regulator decides. And many fear in history would agree that forced access will reduce rail volumes, investment, and ultimately push shipped goods to public highways, causing even more problems. In a world already facing supply chain issues, this policy is likely to worsen supply chain disruptions and drive inflation higher and faster. Maybe the administration is hoping that their words will drive the market more than basic economics. Or maybe they're hoping that people don't look into the specifics or the history of the issue and just listen to the talking points. Unfortunately, their talking points cannot point to any market failure or anti-competitive conduct to justify their actions. Now, something that I find interesting is that while deregulation has become a Republican talking point, the last major round of regulatory reform in the freight rail industry was passed by a Congress led by Democratic majorities in both the House and the Senate and signed into law by President Jimmy Carter. This was the very deregulation that led to the boom in the industry and continues to provide benefits today. Look, Economics 101 is an important class. It's too bad that our power brokers seem to have missed it. Magic fairy dust economics isn't going to solve inflation problems. It is going to take serious people taking serious looks at this public policy to solve today's problems. My name's Charlie Sauer. Please hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment on something you would like us to talk about in the future. Thank you. Bye.